This is the Lyndsay Stafford Show.
All right, welcome back to the Lyndsay Stafford Show. We are in our series right now focused on local legends here in Middle Tennessee, and I have the privilege of having a good friend here in the studio with me today. I have known Nate Feathers for several years, and I'm excited to get him on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about his business. Hopefully I can speak the whole time. His business, Twas the Light Before Christmas, but we're also going to talk about his mission outside of that. Pretty cool what you're doing out there. Thanks for being here, Nate.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm glad to be here.
I mean, so 2 days ago, you put my Christmas lights up. I came home from work, wherever I was at meetings. I don't even know. It was a Wednesday, so who knows?
Right.
And you're on top of my roof putting the lights up. So I had my lights up before Halloween this year, and I was pretty excited. We had a lot of trick-or-treaters. My parents live next door to us. I've talked about that before on the podcast. And this morning when my dad and I met for our daily walk to the gym, he said, "Did you guys get a lot of trick-or-treaters?" And I said, "I mean, compared to most years, we did actually."
Yeah.
And he said, "We only had 2." I said, "Well, I have Christmas lights on,
Right.
and you don't."
Yeah. Every year at on Halloween, I always have mine up early because the mechanic always has the rundown car, right? And so in order to stop that from being the case, I just started putting our lights up early, as early as I could get them up. I think I put them up October 4th this year.
Wow.
And so, but every year on Halloween, when we finish taking the kids around, I hit the lights. And last night I got a speaker and I turned on Christmas music.
Amazing.
My wife shut me out of the house. She's like, nah. She's like, I'm singing along with it all, which I do that every once in a while. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I really push Christmas pretty hard.
I love it. It's so great. So Nate Feathers, owner of Twas the Night Before Christmas. I think we were talking before the show. I'm pretty sure you've done my lights for about 5 years in our house. It's like not even it's like clockwork. It just kind of happens now. Yeah. But I remember when I started, I'm not like a go outside and do things outside work wise. I'll walk or, whatever, but I'll hang by the pool, but I don't really want to like dig in the garden and hang up lights. And my husband's not really a fan of hanging up Christmas lights. We grew up in New England, so it was cold, like real cold to do lights. And then to take them down, it's like really cold. So we just kind of would haphazardly put something out there, and the kids kept asking. I remember the one year I'm like, I don't care, I'm just doing it. I don't know how. I think I followed you on Instagram for maybe because of that. I don't even know how we started, but anyhow,
I don't know how we started either. But I know we've been connected on Instagram even long before that. Yeah,
maybe 7 years or so. But what I love we'll talk about it later, but you're wearing your shirt today. You dressed up for my podcast, so thank you. Dads Don't Babysit is your mission, and that's your Instagram. So if you want to find Nate, it's Dads Don't Babysit on Instagram. And we'll talk a little bit about your mission behind everything you're doing, which is extremely important and necessary in today's world as a dad to be such a present father in the way that you encourage and empower other men to do the same. But before we go there, I want to tell us a little bit about your business, what you do, because you do more than just lights, and how you got started.
Yeah, so I was a roofer, and it just came from a conversation. I think it came from a conversation where right about the time that roofing starts to decline is when Christmas time comes up. It starts to get cold or it's rainy or whatever, so it's harder to get roofs on. And we were in the office and somebody's like, we should just do that. We should put lights up. And I thought, that's crazy. Who's going to pay for that? Like, obviously you do. So, I mean,
crazy people like me.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I thought that's insanity. But I ended up going and visiting my grandfather within like 4 weeks of that conversation. Walking out of the office, I thought, I could do that. That's not hard. And I'm on roofs already. I got the insurance, like all the things like that. But going and visiting him, he was actually dying of cancer. So he was having the whole time we were there, he was just telling stories about his life. And so I'm listening to story after story about how he's like, oh yeah, well, I realized that I could cut paper wood in the morning and we could take that somewhere and I'd get paid for that. And then I could go to my job. And then I realized that I needed more trucks for that. And so he started just growing businesses naturally just because he saw a need that he could fulfill and started going with it, and people would pay him. And then it morphed from trucks for paper wood to hauling coal. And then my dad and his younger brother got old enough to drive the trucks. And maybe they weren't just old enough, but that kind of thing. It was 1960s Pennsylvania back in the day. So he just kept building businesses and still working his normal job to take care of the family. And I literally came home and went, this is in my blood. I can totally do this. So I printed up some cards and walked around a neighborhood till I got kicked out for soliciting. And basically it was just like, if I get one person, it'll be a win, no big deal. And I got 3. And through that, within 4 years, I had tripled my business. And then I got connected to somebody on Instagram, and she blew me up. I now have somewhere in the realm of 150 clients, and I actually have 6 estimates for lights this year that I have to do based on referrals. I don't advertise ever. I just only ever get referrals. And so it's amazing.
And you've grown a strong business. I want to talk about the guerrilla marketing in the beginning here, because I think a lot of people that start a business don't know where to start.
Sure.
And they think that, and I'm in the marketing and advertising and branding space. That's literally what I do. And there is definitely a space for that. And there's a time and place for that. But when you're starting, there's some bootstrapping that has to happen. Walking, knocking doors, door knocking, cold calling, those things they happen. So you got to appreciate the hustle when other people are doing that.
Oh yeah. And I seriously, I just made the choice. Like, I already had a job. It wasn't anything I needed. So I just thought, well, I'll go in here and I'll walk. I've got these dumb little cards. I don't even know what they said, but just said Christmas lights, call this number kind of thing or whatever. And I remember I did get chased out of one place, and I was like, all right, well, I'll leave there and I'll go somewhere else. And just dropping cards wherever I could. And then the beauty of that is that was 2013 was my first season. And so I'd say within a couple years, the Next Door app showed up, and that's where people can share.
Sure.
Right. And you can't really share your business on there unless I think you have to say something like, I'm a business, and then you pay for it or something. But people started sharing that, and I got a couple more. Happened to be that one of those girls that I got shared with on that app got me connected to an Insta famous woman who I love. She's amazing. Ended up moving to Florida, so I don't even get to do her lights anymore.
Oh, bummer.
But she would post on a story, and I'm not kidding. She did it for me for 3 years, I think. And every time she would post one story, I'd be on the roof and my phone would just be buzzing like crazy. And I got to where I couldn't even keep up. And I'm actually at a place now where I have to extend the business into something that's not seasonal in order to be able to grow the business that is seasonal.
Because you have to keep your people employed.
Exactly. So, I don't have any way to keep them employed if it's just Christmas.
Right.
And so,
I remember it wasn't that year that happened, because that was before you and I were connected. I think it was somewhere 17 maybe that you started, or maybe 18 with me. But I remember a year, this is not related to that, but you know where I'm going with this. You were at my house and you had shared a video on Instagram, and it was about your dad's don't babysit, and it was about being a present dad. I don't even remember what the video was.
Yeah.
But I remember talking to you after you were off the roof, and you going, I don't even know how I'm going to keep up. Like, my phone just won't stop. Like, this is crazy. Yeah. And it's amazing the power of the word of mouth when you get to the right people.
Exactly.
So you got in the right neighborhood. And I have this conversation with business owners a lot. Like, unless you're going to go door knock, you got to get into the right communities and get the right people talking about you. And then there's the other side. You got to provide what you say you're going to do and provide a great experience, which I can say you for sure do. Obviously, I keep coming back. Yeah. But there's it's the whole package. You can't just put your name out there and then not do anything to reinforce that.
Totally true.
But if you do that and you give great service and you're showing up and you're doing more than you say you would, then you have this great business, or the great growth of your business. But when that reel blew up, and it might have been the beginning of reels, actually.
It was pretty early on.
Right. Because I was still very involved in social media at that time. I had a different business. I was very much involved in social media. Which I'm not really as much anymore, but I will never forget that. But I want you to shift gears a little bit, and we'll go back to the lights. But how did you come up with Dads Don't Babysit and your mission? Yeah. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is you were probably one of, aside from the Insta famous girl, and she was Insta famous with like 50,000 followers.
Yeah.
She's well over, I think, 200,000 followers now. But you were one of the only people that I knew was on Instagram and had a following of some sort that I could even ask, well, what do I do? And the one thing of advice that you gave me, which is I still follow to this day, is turn off all your notifications and only get on when you want to do business. And I look at my kids constantly because I don't want to be on my phone, and this is part of Dads Don't Babysit, is they're going to do what I do. Rarely are they going to do what I say. They're going to do what I do. And if I'm always like this with my phone, then they will need to have a tablet or a phone like this because they'll be like, well, this is how humans work.
Right.
And so what I always go back to them with is dad is working. The phone for me is only work. And so I have you to credit for that because you said, turn your notifications off. And that night I did. And I've never had them on ever since. So
I want to high five you right now. We're not close enough.
So I have missed certain things because I'm just not on for a certain amount of time. And I'll get back to people and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Which when you have the following that dads don't babysit that we've created with that, most people don't even assume I'm going to respond. Right. So I've responded to people and they've been blown away by the fact that I've even said hi or responded to their statement. But I have you to thank for that. Otherwise, I'd probably go crazy.
Well, that's what friends are for. But I literally remember we were standing by my mailbox and I said, you go, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I don't have any alerts on. I don't know. I would die if I did that. So yeah, I keep that's a great going into what you're talking about, just being a present parent, because you're talking about it from a male perspective, which I so appreciate because it's not, fortunately, I have an incredible father who has always been a hard worker, but always super present and is, one of my closest confidants, and I spend a lot of time with him. But he showed me always by being there. Yeah. I remember Saturday mornings, he traveled a lot when I was a kid, but Saturdays my mom got to sleep in and he raised they had 5 kids. Saturdays was with dad. It was whatever we did, it was with dad. And we knew that was going to be. And then Sunday was church and family time. And he wasn't there every day, but when he was there. And it's so important. But turning your alerts off is something I talk about a lot.
Yeah.
You need to protect your space. And when you let the world come at you, instead of you saying when you can take that, you are so vulnerable at times to what's being said. I find myself, and maybe you have too, where you're like, you go to check and eat, let's say emails, and I'll go, am I in this space to take no matter what comes at me? Am I going to be ready to read it right now?
Yeah.
Because I'm getting ready to go do this. Is this where I need my head to be? Yeah. Because I might need to guard it.
I would say that is totally I'm totally the same way. And to a fault, I think, and it's not like, it's a fault. It really is. I'll be in a place where I'll either get text messages or emails or stuff on Instagram. And then I'm going, I wasn't ready for this. I've got to come back to this. And so I'll have 15 messages on just Messenger, and that'll stress me out. The red dot, the red bubble it's so bad because it makes you feel like, I've got to get all that cleared off. And if I let it, I would just constantly be doing that to get the red dots off. But I've gotten away from that. So now if you look at my phone, my email says it's got 1,500 or whatever it is, where I know it's all spam. I have a specific email that I know that's where I'm sending you. And if you're going there, then
what email address? It's not the one I have, right?
Yeah, you don't have that one. But it's one of those things where you really do. And as a dad, from my standpoint, my wife and I are very traditional. So she stays at home with our kids. So when I'm working, I'm usually away, and especially during this season. And I've talked in the past about, as a dad, living your life in seasons and being able to look at your kids and say, Dad's going to be gone every day for the next month. That's very hard to do, but I am home at night. And when I get home, the phone, I don't have one of those lock boxes for your phone, but I just walk in and I set it on sometimes my wife will be like, where's your phone? I don't know.
I don't know where my phone is a lot of the time.
Because I just put it on the library when I walk in, and I'm like, is it there? I don't know. Maybe it's there. But that's in order to take the break and really focus in on the kids. My youngest is 8 months, and usually every night he and I take a walk because we're very crunchy. I used to say we're chewy, but I guess I fall more into the crunch. So my wife has nursed all of our kids, and she just nurses them until they're done. Well, my daughter is 4, and she's just not giving it up yet. So she will nurse the little guy, nurse her, she'll fall asleep. But while she's doing that, I'm walking the baby because he's still awake. That's like an every night ritual for us. And it was that way for Luna. It was that way for Wyatt. Finley was a little different, but it gives me the ability to have FaceTime with my kids. And again, they're going to do what I do. And they're going to do it when they're teenagers, right? So if I don't want my kids to have their face shoved into a screen when they're 12 and 13, when I don't know what I'm talking about anymore, then I have to create that habit in them by not having that habit in front of them. And so that's a lot of where dads don't babysit comes from. The first The first post that I made was veteran advice from a father of 5 before we had our 6th. And it was about my oldest son going to college and feeling this massive wave of regret that I didn't do it right. And I knew I hadn't. I saw all sorts of places and I'm like, I could have done that better. And of course, hindsight's 2020, but I sat there with like regret, and the weight of regret is so heavy, especially because you can always make more money, but you can never get your time back. I will never have Zeke, who's my oldest. He's 20. I'll never have him at 8 months again, right? So my 8-month-old gets the benefit of every single kid before him, me feeling the weight of not having it from any of the others again. And so I sat there like this. It was so heavy that I felt tears in my eyes. I felt the weight of it. It makes me tear up at times when I talk about it now, because of how sad that makes me that I didn't give him the best childhood I could have had I just chosen something different. And that really started to grow. And yeah, again, like you said, when it's a male voice speaking on parenting, there are very few of us in the space. And so it took off. And then I did one about mothers, like don't incite the mama bear. And that was the one. That was the video. It's had like 20 million hits. Somebody shared it on TikTok and they got millions of hits from it. It was crazy how that one went kaboom.
Wow.
But
there's not a lot of, thank you for sharing. Yeah. I mean, that's like and I think there's so much power in being able to say, I learned from this, I made a mistake, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And I think about some of the people in my life that have helped me through really hard things. And it's taken their vulnerability for me to then go, okay, it's okay for me to share that was something I struggled with. That was hard. And we're all human. I say this all the time. We're all human for the first time ever. This is our first time being a human, mine and yours. So we're going to screw up because we have not done it before.
Yeah.
But when you share that and you acknowledge that that's difficult for you or was, it opens the door for other people to change. And I can't tell you, you'll never know how many people you've impacted with your movement of dads don't babysit. And obviously it goes back to you're just be a present dad. You're not there to babysit. You're there to be a dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You're there to be present every day in their lives. And it's so admirable. You talk a little bit about on your Instagram and social, Dads Don't Babysit, managing how you communicate. And it's unique. I grew up in a different time. So did you, right? I'm 42. How old are you?
44.
Okay, so you're a lot older than me.
I am a lot older than you, and I look a lot older than you too.
My husband is 44, and I'm always like, you're a lot older than me.
Cradle robber, that guy.
Oh my gosh, I make him feel so bad. I forget how old I am, though. A lot of times I forget.
Same.
Do you forget?
Yeah.
I'm like, am I 42 or 41? Yeah, I'm 42. I'm 42. So we grew up in a different era, and we parent differently. Dave and I parent differently than we were parented. We, right or wrong, everybody's got their own way.
Sure.
We don't operate in the way, and you can judge all you want, but this is what we choose for our family. We don't operate in threats or like the threat of a punishment. Our conversations are, I have a child, I won't say which one, that didn't wash, that put the pans in the dishwasher. And the expectation is those pans get hand washed. They don't go in the dishwasher. Well, I found them outside in the dishwasher, I think 3 times. And I finally said, listen, I'm not really sure where the disconnect is. Instead of going, you did this, you're grounded, right? I don't understand because we've talked about this. I made sure last time you said you understand, you didn't forget, So guess what? This week, you're going to be the only one washing those pans by hand. And that way you'll remember that these ones get washed by hands because you did it so many times, right? So we try to operate in the conversational, this is the intent. This isn't a punishment. This is to help you. And here's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then in terms of like expecting society is going to come at them. And if we shield them from all of that, they're not going to be prepared for it. So you have to educate on how to handle it.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's no right or wrong way. We don't take the kids' phones at night. If you do, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We've decided and established. Now they have limits on things and there are other ways we manage, but they need to know how to put their phone down on their own and not fall asleep with it on their face. And it doesn't take very many nights where you're like, oh, you got to get up at 6 and you were up too late when they're like, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
So anyways, we don't have a traditional way of parenting. We're a little different, but I want you to talk about what you talk about with men especially.
Yeah. So the number one thing for me, it comes back to my oldest and then seeing it change through, especially I think I really hone in on it with guys for men with boys. Because there is something, I feel like, and I'm this way, and every guy I talk to, when we talk about daughters, it's just as if my heart is walking outside of my chest. Like that's the way it is. Like there's my heart, there's where it goes, right? So there's a tenderness and a desire to keep them safe. So I see my 18-year-old daughter or my 4-year-old daughter, I see them as like, my job is to keep them safe. And it's weird because I didn't feel like I did it on purpose. And now that I do this, I look back and go, I wasn't doing that on purpose. I didn't separate boys and girls on purpose by doing these things. And what I mean is, my oldest son and all my boys, there is a Christmas card we have where my third child, Finn, he is easily 10 feet in the air. And it's because I threw him. The whole family's looking up at him. And somehow he looked at the camera, and it is one of the coolest pictures. It looks like he's hung just up in a tree. It is amazing, but it's because I was throwing him. I would never have been like, oh, I'll just throw Amelia. Oh, I'll just throw Luna. There's just something about keeping them safe. So I lean heavily on fathers of sons because, again, we are training boys how to be men. And I love how Jocko Willink says it. He says, if you lose your cool, you are no longer, that's not a sign of a good leader. And so if you're getting angry and yelling at people, he's talking about business, but he has some great things to say about fatherhood in that line as well, where it's just like, if you're losing your cool, we used to see that. I mean, I used to be afraid of getting spanked. I didn't get beat or anything like that.
Right. But that was the era we grew up in, right?
I got spanked, or we'd lose stuff, or I didn't get grounded very often, but those were the things that the consequence was always something. I didn't want it, so I had to think about that. But at the same time, it didn't create a connection between me and my dad. So it's not like he and I have this amazing relationship that I go back and go, oh, my dad and I have this great relationship. The truth is, he ran from his family, and now I live 6 hours from my family. There's not really a desire. And you know what I want? I want to have a piece of land where the driveway comes in and there's this massive cul-de-sac, and I've built a house for every kid and they all want to be there. That's what I want. I'm raising my drinking buddies. I'm raising my people that I want. Like, when you're old and you want to have people around you, who do you want around you? You're going to wish you had your family, but how you treat them when they're growing up and they depend on you shows how they'll treat you when they're all grown up and they don't need anything from you. And that's how I talk to men, because we get into our heads about, well, they have to be respectful and you better respect me. And that's something that men want, but we think that we're going to just take it and make it happen. And I know I can look back at points where it was a you'll respect me kind of thing. And underneath all that were a lot of expletives, from my point towards my dad. Like, I can't say these things to your face, but it's coming out of everything in my soul. And that's unfortunate. And the last thing I want is for that to be the way my children feel about me. And so that whole thing about like veteran advice from a father of 5 was that specific thing. I was thinking, no man should feel the way
you felt in that moment.
No man should feel the way I felt in that moment. And my hope and my work is that they don't, is that they get to the end and they go, man, I'm glad I listened to Nate, because I have this connection with my kids that I've always
I love
dreamed
that.
of.
We're going to name this episode Raise Your Drinking Buddies.
Yeah, right. I'm in for that.
I love that. So I'm crazy. I would do the same thing. Like I'm always like, I live next door to my parents. I mean, I am that. Yeah. That is how it is. But growing up, it wasn't, I didn't have a like super tight relationship as a kid. That took time as an adult. We worked through things, and my parents are two of my very best friends. We hang out with them all the time. And I genuinely love them as friends, not just as my parents. But I love your change in the dynamic and the thought process of how do you be a dad?
Yeah.
And it's not by saying you'll do what I say to do. It's by showing how to be a good person and showing what love looks like.
Exactly.
And conversational. It goes back to, what I shared about the conversation with the dishes. Yeah. It's like, it's not, you're in trouble, you didn't do this, you're not listening, this is wrong. And it's just like, maybe they were being lazy and maybe they weren't doing the right thing, but I don't have to handle it in that way. I can handle it in a conversation.
Yeah.
Now, it's very natural for most people to have emotions when they get hurt or upset or angry. Very difficult to control for some people. Some people have a lot more emotional control. I am often surprised at the lack of emotional control from some adults. What are some of the tools that you share with men to kind of overcome maybe that challenge of, I'm the authoritative figure, I'm not raising you to be my drinking buddy?
Yeah, right. There's one major, I actually, it's on my bio and things like that, but I just say self-discipline is the best discipline for your children. And what I mean by that is, again, they're going to do what I do. So and I think about, who do we want to emulate? Even as adults, there are people, as an adult, I look at guys like Andy Frisella, Jocko Willink, all these guys that I go, I want to be like that. There's certain things that I pick out and I go, why do I want those things? Well, if a guy, this is maybe my own thinking, but if a guy's shredded up and just ripped, he's got some discipline that we all want what we see, but we don't always want what it took to get there, right? And so what I want to do is for my kids to go, I want to be like dad with my finances. My dad has money, always seems to have money. My dad is always running businesses. My dad is jacked. Like, the more that they look at the world and go, I want to be like that, and they're like, hey, dad is like that. I just want to be like dad. The more that I do that and provide opportunities for them to be to see that I am the thing they want to be, the more that they're going to follow. But then that also gives me the chance to teach them the discipline of, oh, well, if you want to be jacked, then you eat healthy, you pay attention to like what supplements you need, hormone levels, and you work out. Like you get good sleep. Then when I say it's bedtime and they're going, oh, I don't want to do that, I tend to say, like, when they're fighting me on food, which they don't do very often, but when they are, hey, did you want to get jacked like dad? Yeah. All right. Well, dad eats broccoli. Let's do this. Right. That's how I do that. So I look at it as like self-discipline is the best discipline for our kids, because again, over and over again, it's proven to me, I've proven it to myself, that they're going to do exactly what I do. They're going to talk how I talk. And obviously anyone who has a 3-year-old has heard their 3-year-old say something and been like, oh,
I said that yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. And there are times, actually the other name I thought about using for Instagram was my kids cuss because I do, but that was just too long of a handle.
Yeah. they maybe now you can add a second one of raising my drinking buddies.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love everything that you're sharing. And my dad, like I say, is one of my very best friends. So I think it's so important for the father figure to really pay attention to what they're showing and who they are. There is no perfect. So what do you say to a guy that is, maybe you're talking to him and you can tell that they're like, man, I'm not you. Like, I'm not that good. I still have all these things I'm working on, because the reality is we all got our stuff that we struggle with. There is no perfect. We all have challenges. What do you want to say to that person who's like, I want to be better, but I'm not sure how?
Yeah. I think the number one thing is, so when I got into lifting pretty heavy and then I got into CrossFit, there was an older gentleman there, and I was frustrated with the fact that I'm like, I know I can lift this weight. Why can't I do this? And he said to me, leave your ego at the door. And that has saved my back and my life probably. So thank God for Jim. But at the same time, it's that one, dad, leave your ego at the door. Every kid, it's the first time you're doing it. So Zeke is completely different from Amelia, is completely different from Finn, is completely different from Wyatt, from Luna, and from Kelsey. Like, none of them are the same. So every time I experience something, it's going to be for the first time as a dad. So you don't even know what you're doing, right? So you got to go into it, one, with no ego. And then two, you got to learn how to apologize. Yes. It's massive. And it's training you to apologize and to be humble, but it's also training them that apologies are okay and screwing up is human. I mean, my 4-year-old daughter, I'll do something and she's like, Dad, it's okay. We all make mistakes. I mean, that's only because she's heard it and seen it, not because all of a sudden she's some guru.
Right.
And I think that's when dads have a real hard time with stuff, is when they don't want to let the ego go. and you'll respect me. That kind of guy will not have great relationships in any area of life. He won't have a great relationship with his wife or any women. He won't have a great relationship with his kids or friends because he lets his ego get in his way. And I can say that I've had enough of life humble the snot out of me to look and go, I have no idea what I'm doing, and that's okay. Yeah. So I just apologize constantly and tell the other guys to do the same.
It's powerful to be able to say, I'm sorry, I messed up, or wow, I shouldn't have said that. Remember, I don't know what I said, but I said something that bothered one of my children. I try not to say who it is unless I'm bragging on them. It doesn't really matter because it's me that did this. But I said something and I didn't realize that it bothered them. And I was so proud because they came to me and said, can I talk to you for a minute? And I said, yeah. And they said, it really hurt my feelings when you said that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's not what I meant by that. It didn't. I'm so sorry. That is not how I intended for that to come out. And you know, when you're moving quickly as a parent and you have so many things going on around you, and the life around us and the world spins so fast, it's hard to be quiet. We do things without being intentional. And it goes back to, man, today we're batch recording and it feels like this whole theme is around slowing down and just slow down enough to really be present and think about it. And I know for me, I'm not a dad, but I am a mom and I'm a working mom. And I've always had, you know, a lot going on outside of just being a wife and a mom, which of course come first. Yeah. But that slowing down to really be intentional can be hard. And so in order to not apologize so much, you have to slow down and really think about your interactions. And I'm guilty of that, right? We all are, where I can look back and go, man, I really messed up on that. I wish I had handled that differently. And this is, I don't know this is not related necessarily to be a parent, but maybe I've used this before. And I say to adults, mostly when I'm trying to coach them on how to manage their emotions, is if you are emotional about something and you don't give yourself 24 hours to process it, you're reacting. You're not responding.
Right. Yeah.
And it is with kids sometimes. There's been times where I'm like, I'm not happy with the decision you made and I'm not ready to discuss it because I need to process it. Yeah. And it's okay to say that to kids instead of going, you're grounded for 7 weeks and, you know, no phone and no food.
Well, and then one, you regret that.
Yes.
Two, are you really going to?
You're not going to follow through.
Exactly. And then you feel bad about it, so you'll let it go. And that is something you can't do either. You've got to be able to hold the boundaries too. So you don't throw out threats and punishments that you can't hold up, because then you're a liar and they see right through that.
They know. And I've done it. We've all done it, right? Where I'm like, okay, wait, I shouldn't have done that. I need to give myself time to respond to this and not react. And we get better. Hopefully I'm better today than I was yesterday. I'm not where I want to be, but at least I'm better than I was. Yeah. And that's the mentality. We have to forgive ourselves too.
Absolutely.
And I think that's an important part of what the movement that you're really driving is. Part of that is recognizing, I may not have done it the right way with my oldest, but I can't change that. Yeah. So I have to change what I do going forward. Yeah. And it's okay to give yourself forgiveness for the things that you've done. Absolutely.
I mean, he and I have had those conversations where we've apologized. I mean, again, going back to hanging Christmas lights, he called me and asked if he's shifting his life a little bit. And he's like, Dad, I'd like to come work for you if that's okay. And then really get some stuff figured out over the time that I work with you. And then we can go from there. Right. And I'm like, dude, it's morning till it's like dawn till dusk. We work when the sun's up, we're working. And as long as you're good with that, let's do it. And he worked with me yesterday, even though he's still finalizing his stuff with his other job. I had so much fun. We're laughing so much that this is exactly what I've always wanted. And that actually came from being humble enough to say to him, I did not know what I was doing. And I'm extremely sorry for the stuff that I did and said when you were little, when you were younger, you know, and as you were growing. And it's constantly going back to, you know, learning. And he actually said, when I came to him and talked to him about that, he just said, Dad, you didn't know what you're doing. And it's okay. Like, I love watching you be a dad now. And he doesn't have that. It wasn't like that when I was a kid. He doesn't do that because he knows I'm a totally different human being. Right. And I love that. And I think that, honestly, I was going to say to you that when you said your whichever kid it was came to you and said, I didn't like how you said this and it hurt my feelings. That actually, in my opinion, is a massive testament to the relationship you have with your kids, because they feel the ability to do that. Yeah. My 9-year-old did that the other night, and I didn't handle it the right way. My wife looked at me like, you could do that better. And she's not wrong. I totally could have done it.
She's always right.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, she is.
But my 9-year-old has that ability. And I want all my kids. I want my 4-year-old to be able to look at me and say, Dad, you tell us that this is how we are to act. And I didn't see that. If I want her to be able to point out inconsistencies.
They make us better, but it takes humility to be able, and you've got to give permission. I try to say that to, my team of my I don't like to say employee, but my team, right?
Yeah.
That I'll take feedback. If there's something I'm doing, please tell me.
Yeah.
But you can say that, but how you respond to that matters.
Yeah, it does.
It really does with the kids and with anyone else in our life. So I want to go back. This is all so good, and you'll have to come back.
I'd love to.
And do another one for a different series that we're doing.
Sure.
But this all aligns with business, truly, because if you let the ego go at the door, you remain humble, you don't lose your cool, you stay focused on doing the right thing and the relationship, that all translates to a successful business.
Absolutely.
So you built your business on the side of another job, correct? You started, and you're not doing that still, are you? No. So you built your business, you pulled the raft up close enough to jump and move. I want to real quick hit on what was it like to take that leap of faith and walk away? And you had done a nice job of building up the business prior to that, which...
Yeah, I will have to say that was probably the case. I still do some stuff. I enjoy... I'd go crazy if I were a stay-at-home dad. I'd probably go crazy, or we'd always be doing stuff, and I wouldn't have any money because we'd be spending it all doing that. But mine was an easier transition because I'm able to. I mean, the business I built makes enough money to handle life. So everything else on top of that is a lot of fun, and so I built it to that before I just bailed out and was like, all right, I'll see you guys later,
right.
That kind of thing. So. That's something I feel like the entrepreneur side of me has always been there. Even as a kid, I mowed grass one time. I think it was 8, maybe 9. My dad made me mow the lawn. Well, our neighbor said he'd give me $5 to mow his. And the moment that happened, all I could think was, who else will pay me to do this? And so I remember being 8 years old and trying to mow grass for other people. By the time I was 12. I didn't build this massive business like some of these kids have, but I was mowing grass and making money and things like that. And I just loved that connection to be able to do that. And so for me, doing something on my own has always been where I want to be. And even in sales, if you do a fully commissioned job, you don't have a net. Mm-hmm. And I just always come back going, well, you don't have a net in commission sales, but the truth is any job, any place, anywhere could fire you at any time and rehire somebody and pay them less. So if you don't have a safety net anyways, you might as well do what you want and what you enjoy.
There's so much confusion about that. Mm-hmm. People think, well, I have a job. I can't give up it's guaranteed. I have a salary and I have car, whatever you have, the package, the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
And that's such a confusing concept because it's not true. If you've ever worked with or been in a relationship with someone who's been let go or you've been let go from a place, you realize real fast that there is no guarantee. So when you build your own, there's still no guarantee ever. But as my son says, I'm going to bet on myself, Mom.
I love that.
I'm going to bet on myself. Yeah. I don't care what other people say or do. I'm betting on me.
Yeah.
And you can take that approach. Now I want to go back to the entrepreneur bug at 8 or 9.
Yeah.
I mean, you got bit by the bug and it's like, oh, I have it. Somebody's going to pay me for this. What else can I do? How else can I make money? I want the freedom to be able to do what I want.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So when you built your business to a place where you could walk away from a job, it's still scary. It's still scary to walk away from something that you've been doing. And what made you decide that I can do this?
It came down to, I guess it comes down to the feeling that, why would I work for someone else for this when I can make the same or do more? And again, it's all betting on me, right? So when you own the company and you run it that way, you make profits. And I teach my kids this. I'm like, you make profits. We work for profits because then our money can work for us. And I'm not the best at that, but I can say that if you're always trading your time for money, you'll never have enough time to make enough money. And so how can I exponentially build that? And, it really was that. I found that, the companies I was at wanted something else from me. There was one specific, it was not a happy ending, but it was one of those things where it was one specific where I felt like they did something that wasn't right and I took the brunt of it, and they felt like I sold it short or whatever it was, where they're like, see, we're not these thieves you think we are, kind of thing. And I just thought, this is dumb. Like, why am I working for someone else? I bet on me, just like your son. I'll bet on me. That's fine. And that, I don't know. I think I like the risk. I like the risk too.
Yeah.
When all the chips are down. I started training to fight when I was 30 for that reason. I'm like, if I go into the cage, really the only thing in there is me and the other guy. Mm-hmm. And if I lose, it's on me. And if I win, then I won, right? Now, granted, you have your corner and you have all the people that train with you and all that. But the truth is, if you lay down in the ring, then you're going to get pummeled. So you better go in there swinging. And I look at it that way with business and life and all that. If you're willing to go at it, you might as well go at it for you and for your family, rather than just take what someone else will give you. But
you have to go all in, because if you only go, I'm going to just see if it works. I'm going to like dip my toe in the water. I might do a couple Christmas lights here and there and see if it pans out. Yeah. But you just have to say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go all in and be here for it. And I love the part about wanting to take risks. I like that. It's scary. And there's so many people that are risk adverse, and I totally get that. My husband we're very opposite in a lot of ways. And he would generally be more conservative. Now we've built lots of business together. So he's, a little less risk adverse now. Yeah. But whenever I'd come with a new idea, he'd go, how's that going to work? Right. Like that's his, how's that going to work? Right. And I'm like, it just is. Like, this is how it's going to work. That's right. I'll figure it out. Yeah. And you just either have that or, so for someone who has that, like they want it, but maybe they're not in that. You grew up in an entrepreneurial family. I did not at all. Well, your grandfather at least was, right? Yeah. So you had some of that, and maybe he sparked that, like, okay, you can do this. You kind of shared that piece. I did not grow up in an entrepreneur family, although as an adult, my dad did have his own business at one point. So that I do think gave me the permission mentally to start. But for someone who has the bug but doesn't have the support or the confidence or the resources, what advice would you give them? That's tough, because I really do feel like you have to take it on and go after it. I really do think that. So, man, I would say, I think that you do something that gives you the ability, and I think the internet gives us this ability. So do something that's there. Like, what can you do? What do you love? What do you enjoy? And then can you make money at it? And can you do it on the side, right? Just side hustle it. And I'm not really a fan of that. The side hustle becomes the main hustle or whatever. Just do something on the side that gives you the ability to, that gets you $1. Alex Hormozi talks about it on School. He's like, if we can just get you to realize that you can make money doing this, then you can take it from there. And that's all it was for me. When somebody paid me, I used to only charge, the base charge was $375. And for me, I love my clientele. So you got in early, right? And so I don't raise prices on you. I mean, we talked about this the other day. I only raise prices for new clients. And that's not to gouge them. It's because now I have the skills, the abilities, and the knowledge to do it really well for really high-end clientele, and they're paying it. So why would I waste my time on smaller stuff? But I have not given up any of my low-cost clients. So I still have clients that only pay $375 when new clients have to pay probably at least $1,000. Yeah. But that's because I've built it up over time. So you think if we were to compress my entire business, I've done this for 11 years, but I've only done it for 3 months out of every year. So, I mean, it's not that long of a time. Right, it's like 3 years. Yeah, exactly. So it's been a short time frame that I've done that. And you can do that too. Find something you can do where once you make $1, you go, okay, I know I can do this. And I think the internet makes that extremely easy. And it builds your confidence. Yeah. It does make it easy because there's so many ways to make money, but you gain confidence, right? The first business I did was direct sales, and I will never forget. I mean, I was 18 years old. I remember the first check I got and going, "Oh, they actually are they're going to pay me. I actually can make money doing this. Oh, okay. I don't have to go apply for a job and have somebody tell me what to do. And wow, all right. But you gain confidence. So just starting doing something makes sense. I love the fact that you're talking about raising your prices as your business grows. That is something business owners I talk to every day, they do not know how to do it.
Yeah.
They don't know how to scale their business and grow their revenue by increasing their price of their service or product in order to take on fewer people and make more money and buy their time back or employ other people.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole nother subject we're going to have to come back to.
Yeah.
You already shared where we can find you, but I want you to share what do you do for Twas the Night Before Christmas? Tell us a little bit more. What do you do? And it's the season right now. We're in November.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
So for Twas the Light, what I do is my company will, if your first time, we purchase the lights for you. So you buy them through us. You are the owner of the product. So if you were to ever move or say you don't want me to do it, I will bring you a bin of stuff. But basically, you purchase the lights through us. We install them. We maintain them throughout the season. So if a bulb goes out or anything like that, we take care of that. And then we take them down at the end of the season, and then we store them for you for the year. So it is literally all of the joy of Christmas without any of the hassle. And that's what the whole purpose of it was for. And so I actually have a house that I'm working on right now that they moved, and they asked, can you move our stuff? Yeah, no problem. We just reorient it and figure it out for their new house. And we just go from there.
It's so easy.
It's so easy.
For me, it's hey, can you put my lights on? And then I come home and you're on my roof.
That's
Not
right.
the same day. I make it sound a little faster than it is. But they look beautiful. They're well done. You do wreaths too, right?
Yeah, I do wreaths, garland. I do groundwork. So when I say groundwork, I do trees, bushes, skip laurels are usually what a lot of people have.
Lights on these. He doesn't plant them.
Yeah, I don't plant them. I do mini lights on a lot of that stuff. So you get mini lights. You'll have archways. I've done garland swag. If you can dream it for Christmas, I can probably do it.
Awesome.
Or find a way to do it.
Twas the Light Before Christmas, but for everything else, Instagram is Dads Don't Babysit. So find Nate there.
Yeah.
My friend, I'm so grateful to have you here today. You are awesome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Make sure you like, share, and follow.